Is a machine embroidery, and I'm so excited to be here today with you. You know, for 20 years I've been sharing tips on machine embroidery, and today we're going to tackle quilting in the hoop with your embroidery machine. You know, many of us have lots of quilt tops at home that we've pieced and we've poured our heart and soul into, but we want to get them finished. So I have some tips on how to do that today. And before we get started, I thought we would take a look at some of the dime doors that are being stitched, and we've had several people share them with us. So before we switch over, let's just make sure if you're watching, if you would just give me a thumbs up so I know that you can hear me, then we'll move on to the actual. Oh, there's Brenda Miller. Hi, woo woot. Hello to you too. And Shannon Margaret, hi. Good to have you here, both of you ladies. It's always great to have people, you know, I'm just amazed how many people join, and we learn so much from each other, isn't it? It's fun, I swear. It's a joy to do this. So we'll move over to the doors, and first I'm going to share, the first door I'm going to share with you is from a dealer in the Pittsburgh area, Gloria Horn. Now, she's a baby lock dealer a little bit north of the Pittsburgh area, and she's hosting a class actually in her shop on the door. And what she's doing is she has a kit available, and the frames are in her store. Isn't that delightful? I like how she displayed it. She put some greenery around it and some lights. That looks just delightful. Nice job, Gloria. And then this past Saturday, Sue Brown from OML Embroidery hosted a sew-along on YouTube, and she showed how you can use these little fairy lights to finish hers, and that's a whole hour-and-a-half class, so it's free. It's right up there on her YouTube channel if you want to check it out. Some other people that joined us and shared photos was Candy Bray on the left, which I love the fabric that she chose for her house. Doesn't it kind of really look like stonework? And then Charmaine Devaney is a newbie, and she shared this comment with us on Facebook. She said she's new, and her first version, she wasn't as happy with it. She didn't leave enough seam allowance on the sides of the fabric. And I think I mentioned that when we talked about it that first week. So she had a blowout, as you could see. So her first example is on the left and her second is on the right. She added the word January to her hanging sleeve. I think she'll probably do that all 12 months around. And she didn't like using the warm and natural. So she switched to a flannel fabric, which gave it a softer and not as bulky hand. So that was a good idea to do. Then we have Cindy Knight King. I'm guessing her maiden name was Knight, and then she married a king. That's pretty cool, right? I love her door. It's really colorful. The green and the orange, very nice. And Cindy Pricer, you put January on your door. Very nice idea. I like that. And Cindy Reven, she has a dog there in the foreground of her door, and a really exciting decorative print for her door. I thought that was pretty cool. And Connie Kessler, you used very similar colors that I did, and yet it looks like your wreath is maybe a 3D wreath, like beads or something like that. Looks very nice. She also has a tiny little snowman button at the base of the tree. Love that. Really nice idea. Debbie Howe, she has a little squirrel in the left-hand corner of her quilt door. You could see in the bottom there in the snowbank. That was a nice addition. And Deborah Mason Humphrey, you added a really nice spray of holly leaves and berries. Really nice. I know. Let's see, Brenda, you said wonderful ideas. I think they are all so inspiring. It's great. I just love them. And Lisa Surmi, she also used pattern fabric for her door, and then a contrasting pattern fabric for her sidewalk. She appliqued a tiny little pooch there on the doorstep. Super cute. Love that. And Mona Smith, I like your red frame. I think that looks just fabulous. Really, really fun stuff. So Mona Smith, she has a single page here, but it's the same version of what we just saw. So let's get to the topic at hand, which is finish those quilt tops. And you know, in 2015, I had the honor of taping with my dear friend Nancy Zeman, the late Nancy Zeman, on Sewing with Nancy. And it was actually my last appearance on Sewing with Nancy. And I think it's 2016 though. But here we are prepping for that taping session in her office, and it was a cold day in February, and here we're enjoying some hot chocolate with whipped cream. You know, you put whipped cream on anything and it tastes great, right? So as you can see, if you look in the background on the table, there's, you know, all of our paperwork and the beginnings of a taping. This is how it starts. But you have to come with good ideas, or, you know, you don't actually make it onto the set of Sewing with Nancy. So this is how my book, Quilt with Your Embroidery Machine, was born, by that taping with Nancy, because, you know, she could really break down a process and help you dissect the steps so that it would be achievable for everyone. And it most certainly was. So the title of the book is Quilt with an Embroidery Machine in 8 Easy Lessons. And there really are 8 different steps in the book. So the first one talks about what you will need: the machines, the designs, the tools, and any kind of other supplies that you would need. Now, machines, we do base these, the designs in here on 6-inch blocks or 6x10 vertical designs, because, you know, quilts are usually large. So we start with the 6-inch block. And in lesson 2, you will learn my patented technique for where you quilt first and then applique. And you do all of this in the hoop in one step, and then you trim later when it comes out. 2 projects that feature that, and of course all of the embroidery designs are included in the book, are the fleur-de-lis table runner and then the spiky flower table runner. Super fun. And these projects are fast. I mean, there's 8 blocks in each one, and each of those blocks stitch in under, 10 minutes, because they're applique fabric. They look complicated, but it's raw edge applique. It stitches very quickly. And then, of course, in lesson 3, you'll learn my reversible piecing technique. And we shared this on Sewing with Nancy, which you can still see online today if you want to watch the whole program. But basically, I use sashing on the front and on the back of the quilt, and I outline all those steps on how to cut those sashing strips and how to piece them together so that the back looks as good as the front. So here you can see my back. I used a colored contrasting sashing on this strip, but actually the sashing goes all the way across. It's just pieced sashing. And here's the front of that quilt. That's the fleur-de-lis quilt. And when you use the same color sashing as the quilt block, it looks like a whole cloth quilt, but really there's sashing in here. And then I added some decorative elements by piecing some of the sashing. So that's a popular topic. And people often get a little confused, so we really lay it out very easily on how to do it in the book with the reversible piecing. And then we move on to what I like to call custom quilting, where you have specific shapes in your project, whether it's a pillow, a table runner, a quilt block, and shapes within the block itself, like circles, hexagons, and squares. And then you would treat that a little bit differently. Of course, you're going to prep your quilt. And in the book, I share my technique for using pool noodles so that you can roll your quilt top and quilt backing separately and insert the batting in the middle. We also show that on Sewing with Nancy, so you could search that on both YouTube or just on the web over at wpt.org, I believe. And then the custom quilting is kind of, I think that photo was out of order, but here we have diamonds, right? We have both a light colored diamond and then a darker one. So I have 2 different designs that are placed within those shapes. They fit perfectly, and of course can be sized appropriately for your project if it's not the same size as our diamond. And then all over quilting, also known as edge-to-edge quilting, is so popular. Now that's the look that you get when you buy a comforter. They're often evenly spaced designs that just, that may not connect, but they are evenly spaced all over the quilt. And offsetting them with, opposite numbers, like 5 on the top row and 4 on the second row, and vice versa, all the way through the quilt, gives a very pleasing layout. There's a little bit of math involved in that, and I provide that to you in the book on how to measure your quilt, measure your embroidery design, and then determine how many you will need and how far apart to space them on the quilt. Sounds complicated, but really it's not. And then the all over continuous line where we connect one thread to another. Can you believe we can even do that today? That amazes me. So Happy Flower is probably my favorite embroidery design in that whole collection that's in that book. And you can see the single repeat at the top of the image and then 2 repeats at the bottom. So now we want this to fill the entire quilt. And you can see on the image on the right where I have it in 4 different colors, how they nest together vertically and yet they actually connect horizontally. And so I have a really good method on how to do that on your quilt. But when you are doing that, you want to make sure that, you know, your designs are lining up on the quilt. You don't want to start in one corner and then kind of get off center or not aligned with the seams on the quilt. So we'll segue over to that topic in a moment. But right now, I want to share with you lesson number 8, which is the finishing. You got to have a label on your quilt. So make sure you place the date, your name, maybe where you're from, or if there's a specific purpose. If it's a gift for someone, don't hesitate to include laundering instructions. People really appreciate that. It's always one of the first questions I get from someone who receives a gift from me. And I make a little triangular label that I tuck into on the back of the quilt into the corner, and then I secure it when I do attach the binding. Also have a great technique that Nancy shared with me on Sewing with Nancy, and we simultaneously shared with the viewers on how a fast way to apply binding and to finish that edge. And you don't have to seam it together. It's kind of a cheater's trick, but works very well. A little bit of fusible web helps out. So all those tips are in the book. And here are the embroidery designs that come with it. So you're going to see all those applique designs. That's the first 10. And then we have our shape designs, the diamond and the chandelier designs, and then the hexagon. And then we get into the designs that connect, like the Happy Flower or just the stipple designs. And you'll see there's a left or a right indicated on each template. And that tells you that is for when you're traveling from the left or to the right across the quilt as you quilt. And, you know, instructions, of course, for that are right in those instructions. So when we're going to place our designs in a linear path on a quilt, it's important that we make sure they are straight. So in this image, you can see I have a pieced quilt that has lots of decorative, pretty fabrics in it. And my Happy Flower, once it's complete, will kind of just embellish the whole quilt, and it won't specifically be centered in each rectangle or patch that's included on the quilt. It's a continuous design. They're going to connect. So I print a template, and I use that vertical crosshair to make sure my design is aligned with the seam. So do you see the orange and white seam there? And yet my crosshair is not centered on the seam line, but it is aligned evenly with it. So it's a 1/4 inch away from that seam line as, you know, you look at from the top of the template to the bottom. How do we, and we want to make sure that we are in the hoop in, you know, straight. I never really know whether I should say straight or square, right? But I want to make sure that that seam line that we're talking about hits my frame, the bottom of the frame at, the bottom of the frame at the same mark. Like here, it hits at 7/8 of an inch at the bottom of the hoop. And at the top of the hoop, it hits at the same place. Now that can be somewhat challenging, but really with a magnetic hoop, it's so easy to achieve because you will just lift that top frame and move the fabric a little bit to make sure that it is aligned with the top and the bottom in the same location. So I want to switch over now to our other camera so I can show you on a magnetic hoop how you would apply the rulers to make sure when you are using the ruler as an alignment guide that the rulers are in the same position, top and bottom. So let's go on over to camera 2 and we'll take a closer look at that. Okay, before we do that, I think I'll just slide this under here so you can see what I mean. So here, let me see, we'll turn it this way. So here you can see I have my seam line is hitting my rulers right at the 3 millimeter mark, right? So I know that if I put a template down here and just align my template line with the seam line, I'm going to nail that. It'll be perfectly straight. But the key is you have to get the rulers on your hoop. Now, when you purchase a magnetic hoop, it comes like you see here without the rulers attached. And I am going to supply this crosshair design free on my blog, which is dzgns.com blog. And you can download it. It's up there in multiple formats. It's actually in 2 sizes, a 4x4 and also a 6x10. So you can use either one. And then I place my tearaway stabilizer or any kind of solid stabilizer that you can really see. You don't want a really translucent stabilizer for this technique. Take it to the machine, hoop that in your monster hoop without the ruler attached, and then stitch the crosshair. Don't move the crosshair at the machine, just load the design and stitch it, and it will be perfectly centered. Then you place the hoop under PAL, and now you can see that I have my centering rulers, and I just align that 0 on the centering ruler with the beam, and I am perfectly aligned. So I would just remove that paper backing, and I would do the same thing for the vertical on this side. So now I know that this will be absolutely perfectly matched. Now you may wonder, why doesn't Dime have the rulers attached to the magnetic frame when you purchase it? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the center of this design is not always located in the same place on the frame across all machine models. And these frame tops are used across various models. So that's why they can't be attached. Because when we manufacture them, we don't know if this is going to be a Viking top or a Brother top or what specific model. So this is an easy workaround. Now, what happens if you don't have the alignment, perfect alignment laser? Well, do the same technique and then use a ruler to extend that crosshair, take a Sharpie and draw that line, and then use those lines to make sure the 0 is at equal marks, both locations, top and bottom, as you extend that line of stitching. This makes it absolutely flawless. Okay, so let's go back over here and let me see if you have any questions. Because I know a lot of people, which magnetic hoop am I using? Christy, that was the 7x12 for Baby Lock Brother. And, we make a lot of them. So you really have to, that's Snap Hoop Monster by Designs and Machine Embroidery. We're the only company that manufactures a magnetic hoop for home embroidery machines that has a completely magnetic top. It's not just what we would call refrigerator magnets. And Cheryl, you like the label. Yeah, I love the label too. It's great. And it's a great way. I'm one of those people that, often it's one of the last things I do is to make the label. And so if I'm almost done the quilt and I'm stitching that label on another machine, I can still get it onto the machine. Get it onto the back of the quilt as long as the binding's not done. And Veronica, are there magnetic hoops available for Bernina? Yes, there are. We make 3 different sizes. You can go to dzgns.com and search a Snap Hoop Monster to find the sizes that are available. We also have a compatibility chart there. Hi, Gail Bruton. Nice to have you here. Let's see, and we have some new hoops coming out. I can't tell you the sizes, but you should always keep a lookout on our website as to when they're coming. So we're always trying to get them up. I know, Kathy, I love my magnetic hoops too. I don't think I would still be embroidering if we didn't have magnetic hoops. I can tell you that. They are just make embroidery so easy. But quilting with your embroidery is almost impossible without a magnetic hoop. I mean, I would never struggle with an inner and outer ring if I was quilting with my embroidery machine. It just makes it a little bit too clunky, and it doesn't give you the hold that you need. So here, I'll bring one of those hoops over so you can get a better look. Here's a, now when you want to separate them, you just slide them apart instead of trying to force them separately, but they're so strong. I mean, when you snap them in place, you literally can, smooth and tug and drag, and that's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. That's what I love about it. And of course, we have tips, in the book, on our blog, on how to lift that top frame right when you're at the machine. I do all of this right at the machine, and I just store that frame over the head of the machine and then advance the fabric and then drop it back down in place. Yeah. Oh, Gail, you have all the sizes. Yeah. Aren't we spoiled? I have all the sizes too. I love them. Even the 4x4 I love. That's what I use on all knit fabrics and, small items. I use that all the time. And often hand towels. I feature small embroidery designs, so I use my 4x4 for those projects also. They're really very handy. So and next week, we have some exciting things going on. And then the following week, I think it's 2 weeks from today, is when we'll share our February door. So we're really excited about that. We just had all of our educators here for training, and boy, we had a great time with them. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go to a Dime event, but you really should be on the lookout. And if there's one near you, sign up and go. Like this weekend, Ashley Jones is teaching our lace class, and in Aurora, New York, at 2 locations there in the Aurora area. And then the next week, she's actually going to be at Quality Sewing, 2 locations there also, Mount Vernon and Olympia, Washington. So you'll have to check their calendar. I think it's the 23rd and 25th. There's a day off in between. And also up in the Northwest, Cheryl Burnett is teaching a Stitch Lab, which is our hands-on class, and that's in Portland at the Save. I don't think I have that right here. Stitch Lab with Cheryl at the Save stores in Portland, right? And then I'm going to be in Vegas at Quiltique with Lisa Knight on February 13th and 14th. I'm excited about that. So, Benita, you want to know if the Elegante 2 has a magnetic hoop? Absolutely. I think the Elegante takes up to a 7x12. It could possibly take an 8x12. So all of the sizes below that, and including that large size, would work on your Elegante. So a 4x4, 5x7, 6x10, definitely the 7x12, possibly the 8x12. You'd have to check the compatibility chart, or just whatever hoops you have at home that work on your Elegante. We make the same size in a monster hoop. Yep. Oh, Claire. Oh, thanks for clearing that up. East Aurora, south of Buffalo, New York, and Williamsville on Saturday. And Diane, you have a FOF. Yes, we make a 120 by 120 for the FOF and a 200 by 260 for the FOF. We have 2 new sizes coming out for FOF soon. Soon means spring, but be on the lookout. And you're having a problem with some of it, with your hoops sliding and moving the fabric. Okay, I'm going to give you a little tip. Sometimes during the life of a quilt, of these frames, we can get air between the magnet and the bottom of the frame. Sounds weird, I know. But what you do literally is you take this and you drop the magnetic frame. So this is the top side with the ruler. You also know the bottom side because there's a little notch, and that helps you lift this frame off of the metal bottom. So the notch is the bottom. So you drop that onto a solid floor like a cement, in your garage. And that will make those magnets get back in place, and that should solve your problem. Magnets do not lose their magnetism over time, so that is not the problem. Will I be at Road to California? No, I will not be at Road to California. I don't really do those trade shows any longer. I occasionally make a personal appearance at one of our dealers, but not very often. I'm going to be a Quiltique because I have an other business in Vegas that weekend. And no, I'm not in a poker tournament. It's just a trade show that's there. That's to the trade only. Any chance the beautiful doors can be adopted to a 5x7? Carol, you know, we created this to fit in the wire frame, and a 5x7 would not accommodate that and fill that space. So if you have software, you most certainly could size it down. Believe it or not, a 5x7 is not that much smaller than a 6x10. You could also do it at your machine. Most machines today allow you to resize. You just would want to recalculate the stitches. That's often a button that you push when you're resizing. And then you can just shrink it down that size. So that's kind of where we are on that. Let's see, Patricia Martini, 14x14 for the Baby Lock Valiant. No, we don't make that yet. We don't make that yet. Let's see, where can I find the crosshair template on the website? Liz, it's not up yet, but it will be up within an hour. And that's at dzgns.com/blog. So it's going to be on my blog. And, you know, if you subscribe to my blog, you will be notified when it's posted. So you don't have to keep checking. And it's a good idea to subscribe to the blog. We don't hound you, you know, with anything else. It's just when there's a new posting, you get an email that says, check this out. And so that's where it will be. It'll be in a zip file, which you'll download. It comes in two sizes, the 4x4 and the 6x10. And truly, the 4x4 would work for any size hoop because you can just either use POW to extend those, you know, the beam would extend that crosshair, or you could use a ruler to draw right on the stabilizer. Okay, let's see. Just subscribe. Thanks, Liz. That's a great idea. When using a magnetic hoop and embroidering a dish towel, what stabilizer? Well, you know, without knowing what design, I would use a tearaway, wash away stabilizer. I love our piece and stitch for that because I don't want to have a big square of stabilizer extending beyond my embroidery design on a dish towel. You know, I'm going to use it to dry towels and so forth. So eventually I want that to kind of all move away, you know, fade away. And let's see. How do we subscribe to the blog? So when you go over to that blog, up in the top corner, it says subscribe here. So you'll just go ahead and click that, and then you enter in your email, and then you'll be notified when a new posting goes up. So let's see. The magnets are perfectly safe to use with your machine. They most certainly are, you know, and that's a great question that we get all the time because, well, I'm really showing my age, but when the first home embroidery machine became available on the US market, we were told don't use a magnetic pincushion anywhere near that machine. And frankly, that was good advice because, you know, we had a cell phone back then that was literally as large as my laptop, right? It was in a tote bag, had a big coil wire that you had to plug into the cigarette lighter and so forth in the car. And that was considered high tech. Same with the embroidery machine. Well, today, that embroidery machine is larger, has way more capabilities, and yet its brain is about the size of your thumbnail. It's highly insulated inside the machine head. And, you know, several episodes ago, I showed you, and let me grab a pair of scissors so you can see. So here's a pair of scissors that will stick right to, you know, my magnetic frame, right? Sticking right on there, as you can see. But when I add the bottom frame, and I'm going to do, well, here, let's do it with fabric. When you add that bottom frame, and now I try to add my scissors, they won't stick. See, because that magnetic force is stopped by the metal bottom. So no magnetic force is going into the machine. Once it's attracted to the metal, it's no harm, no foul. And we have stitched thousands, millions of designs literally with magnetic hoops, and they're tested thoroughly on all machine brands. And here in in this room right now, there are over 25 magnetic hoops. There's 3 embroidery machines. We've never had an issue, never had any kind of issue. Let's see, can I get another set of paper rulers for my hoop? Yes, you could just contact our customer service and they'll hook you up with that. You know, and I'd like to say something about the about the measure, whether it's metric or inches on the rulers. Here's the deal. On your standard embroidery hoop, you have notches, right? Little bumps that tell you the center, vertical, center, horizontal marks on your hoop. But you don't have anything that says inches or metrics. You just have a couple little nodules, right? So when we use the rulers, we started out imperial, which is inches, and then we had a request to do metric, so we did metric. And it seems we often, people ask for the other one. You know what? I never measure anything in my hoop. I just want to make sure I'm hitting the same mark, top and bottom. I don't care if it means millimeters, inches, feet, yards, doesn't matter. If it's a 2 at the top, I want it to be a 2 at the bottom. That's really what they're used for. They're really not used to measure. So don't get too hung up about that, whatever you have. Let's see. Can you tell me your blog again? Sure. We are at dzgns.com/blog, and you'll find us there all the time. There's tremendous amount of information there. I've been blogging since 2008. That's 12 years ago. That's a lot of content. And you can search by category, by topic, you name it, by date. You're better off doing it by topic for sure. So let's see. What other questions do we have? You love your mag. Oh, I know. I loved our magazine too, Diane. It was great. Wonderful, wonderful run we had for 20 years with Designs and Machine Embroidery magazine. And now here we are on Facebook Live, connecting, talking to people one-on-one. Who gets to do that in print, right? So we're really excited to make these changes and, just continue to connect and stay in front of you and keep everybody embroidering, because that's what we all love to do. And it's, it's what keeps us rolling here at Dime for sure. So, but we would love to know what projects you're working on right now. So if you could just maybe give me a shout out and just tell me what's in your hoop today. Like, are you working on a towel, on a baby shower gift, or maybe you're working on your dime door? I'd love to know what you're working on. Or you can also, what kind of trouble areas do you have with your embroidery? Is there something that you would like us to tackle here on Facebook Live? Because we're always looking for new topics to cover, and we want to make sure that we're relevant and reaching you and what you want. What size is best to start with? Susan, I think you're asking about a hoop, right? What size would be the best to start with? Well, what I tell people is, try to think about all the projects that you do and what size hoop do you use the most. If you are someone who is mainly using your 4x4, then you should get a 4x4. If you only use your big hoop, then get that same size, 8x12 or 10x16. Let's see. Oh, and Arnell, you're making a purse. Are you doing it right in the hoop? Just everything in the hoop? I love doing those things. They are so much fun. And Carol, you're going to jump onto the doors. That's good. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll have them all year, and then I thought, well, I am most certainly going to make them stand alone, where they have the finished back, but it might be nice to not add the back and then piece them into a small quilt all as one. At the end of the year, you would have 2 different projects, one that would just be standalone for the month that you're making. And then the other would be, a small wall hanging with all 12 doors. And let's see, Tammy, you're working on a baby blanket and putting some names and titles on work aprons. Oh, well, that's fun. Fast and easy projects that are really personalized. And I'll bet whoever you're making them for would be very appreciative. And Liz, you're making warm window insulated shades for trailer windows. Wow, that's a challenge, huh? Good for you. Boy, that'll make that trailer really cozy. That warm window insulated material is ideal for keeping the cold breeze and, chilliness out of there. And you're stitching out a window pane scene of snowman in the field, Charmaine. Lovely. Good for you. Oh, Charmaine, I don't know if you were here earlier, but we featured your door. So if not, you'll have to go back and watch, the early part of this. And Teresa, you embroidered a 10 jean jacket backs for granddaughters, and now you're making in the hoop tote. Wow, you have 10 granddaughters? How cool is that? That's great. Let's see. And you're getting ready to do the quilting on the seashell table runner, Benita, that was in the magazine. Yes, that was a gift from Christine Connor of Amelie Scott Designs, and many of you know her as Edge to Edge Quilting. And, you know, you're going to be hearing more from Edge to Edge. I can tell you that with Christine Connor, we're going to be teaming up with some new projects. She is delightful and so talented. I know many of you are fans of hers and have been collecting her Edge to Edge quilting designs for a long time. She's just darling, very talented woman. She lives up in Ohio. Oh, you bent your foot, Deborah. And I'm hoping that's your embroidery foot, not your real foot. But, you know, I've seen that this year in several events. I have seen people bend their foot. And frankly, that is something that I have never seen until this year at any event. And I've taught hundreds, if not thousands, definitely thousands of embroiderers around the country. And I've stitched on, you know, my foot, and I've nicked it, you know, left a scratch from a needle, but I've never actually seen where it has bent until this year. So maybe there was a change in their manufacturing. I don't know. But Gail, you're making another vintage clutch and you love that thread. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I love it too. It gives you great results, big chunky stitches, and it stitches so fast because the stitch length is so long. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah. Hi, Brenda Williams. Thanks for joining us today. We're happy to have all of you here. This has really been an exciting time here at Dime. This first month of January has just been, we jumped right in with the Dime Door, the January Door. And we're so excited to see so many people following along. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, a dealer up in Pittsburgh is hosting a party this weekend, and she's going to have 2 classes on doing the Dime Door. So maybe that's something you'd want to encourage your local dealer to participate in, because, you know, it's often more fun to stitch with others, right? And that's what we love to do at our Dime events. Our educators share so many great ideas. It's just amazing. So if you're looking for a little camaraderie, really go to our website and just search on events and software, and you will find, well, we have over 45 events already scheduled for 2020, and more are signing up every day. So that's super exciting. Let's see. Mona, you just finished a 60 by 60 quilt with edge to edge embroidery. That's awesome. You love your hoop. Isn't it such a rewarding feeling when you can finish those big quilts? I mean, I think 60 by 60 is large. That's wonderful. I have done 2 queen size quilts, and it's just, you know, it just feels great. Queen size is big for sure. It's a lot of hoopings. I think it was about 70 hoopings, but you know what? I took about 3 days, and I didn't work 8 hours a day, and I finished it. And, you know, on YouTube, I shared in the summer, I did a quilt that measured 62 by 72. And I showed you how I use the magnetic hoop and also the weightless quilter to stitch that whole quilt. And I did do it in one day. And one thing I didn't share was how I use the weightless quilter to hold the quilt when I do the binding, because at that point, I'm tired, right? That's the last thing you do to a quilt. And you frankly might be a little tired of it at that point. You just want to get done. So instead of rushing through the binding and lifting all that weight through the, you know, machine, feeding it in there, I let the weightless quilter hold it. I stitch one side, get up, reclamp it, stitch the other side. Oh, love it. It's beautiful. So fun. Okay, and Jane Sprague, you also bent your foot. Your thread got caught around the finger like a piece of thread. Yeah, and when it reached the max, it bent the foot and stopped the machine. Yeah, I saw it at 3 different events, and I was shocked. I don't know why, because really for 18 years, I never saw it happen before. But, you know, it's okay. They're replaceable. They're not that expensive. And, you know, you get through it, right? You get through it. It's not going to stop us from stitching, that's for sure. So let's see. Yeah, and Tammy, just resize your design in software. And, you know, if you don't have software, we have free software on our website, which is called Embroidery Tool Shed. So if you go to dzgns.com and search for the Embroidery Tool Shed, that is free sizing software. You have to install it onto your computer. but you can size and you can copy and paste and merge designs. So it's a very handy software program, and it's free for you. You can download it on our website, or you could attend a dime event at a local retailer and you will get it in your gift bag. And our educator will also show you how to use it. Super easy. So for those of you who are just kind of getting your feet warm with software, that's a great starter software that's free. It gets you familiar with how to use some of the features in a software program. And, you know, I'll tell you, if you are serious about machine embroidery, and you probably are if you're watching this like I am, you really can't live without embroidery software. The machines, I know, they have so many wonderful features. For heaven's sakes, some of them actually digitize. But if you really want control and you really want professional results, you are definitely going to want software that you can use on a laptop. So you have that full screen, you have a mouse, and you can print templates, you can view, zoom, you can change color sequence, all those types of things. So, you know, don't be afraid of using software. You know, we're not planning, you know, medical operations here. It's just fabric and thread. So there's no harm, no foul, right? Let's see. Let me go to thank you. How far down do you suggest sizing it? Well, Tammy, you would open up that design and you would size it in the metric system 130 to 180. Now, normally when I'm sizing, and now that 130 by 180 is the metric equivalent of your 5x7 hoop. Now, it's truly not the actual equivalent, you know, it's just generically what we say here in America, a 5x7 equals 130 by 180 millimeters. And so if you size your design to 129 by 179, it will definitely fit your hoop. Okay, now I want you to know, Tammy, I have not done that. I have not stitched it out at that size. Okay, so don't use your best fabric. Do a test first. The only thing that may be a little worrisome would be the tree, but it's just a regular complex fill, no fancy fill. You should be fine. Yep, you should be just fine. And let's see, Deborah, you're saving up for the quilter. I saw your summer video. Oh yeah, well, I'll tell you, if you're serious about quilting with your embroidery machine, it's the way to go, because the weightless quilter is a lot less expensive than quilting by check, right? Hiring someone to finish your quilt on a long arm, what the price of a weightless quilter is practically the same price that you would pay for you know, someone else to quilt your quilt. So, you know, in a way, you really are saving money in the long run. Okay, well, I think that's enough for today. I so enjoyed having everybody here, and we hope to see you next Thursday at 1 o'clock, and we'll just talk more embroidery. See you then.